Good afternoon, Campbell McCrary, Amvest Capital, New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Hyperion Metals Limited, formerly named Tau Commodities. Hyperion trades on the Australian Stock Exchange as HYM, Helicopter Yankee Mike. We hope you'll enjoy today's program. It will be available in replay about an hour after this. You can get that. You'll get an email from us, but also amvestcapital.com/replays. Easy. Amvest is a New York-based specialist investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. This call is absolutely for informational purposes only. We really like questions from the audience, so send in your questions in the question pane there, and we'll incorporate them into the Q&A portion after the formal presentation. And when you do, on your way out, please share your feedback. You'll be queued for that, and that's really helpful. And Tasso will get it very soon after the show. Tasso, I'm going to make you presenter. And if you want to turn on your webcam, Tasso is the.
You there?
Yep. Share your screen. Tasso Arima is executive director, which is Australian for president and CEO, essentially. Is a resource company executive with a strong history of identifying company-making research projects. He was the founder and is a director of Piedmont Lithium, and instrumental in identifying and securing Piedmont Lithium project. I think a lot of you are here because of that success, or if you haven't, do look it up. It's absolutely amazing. Again, we'll be asking you for questions. Please share your questions with us, send them over, and we'll give Tasso a run for his money. So with that, Tasso, you have the floor. Take all the time you want.
Perfect. Okay, so I've got my screen shared here as well.
Yep.
Because I can't see, unfortunately, my. There we go. All right. So can everybody see that?
No, we don't see it. No, you turned it off.
I turned it off.
Yeah, they're both on.
You got it now.
I've got it now because I actually can't see it.
So put it back. Okay. And then I guess in the bottom of your screen, click on the flower icon. You can pull up presentation.
Can you see that?
Yeah, we see the presentation. I'm just helping you to see it.
Yep. Okay. All right. If you can see the presentation, sorry about that. I'm on my Surface Pro here, but I'm just, thanks Campbell, again, this is the second time I'm on. I'm presenting today from my office in Camden, Tennessee, my newly renovated office, which is on the corner of Main Street and the main highway over here in Camden, Tennessee, and it's really exciting to be back on the show as we've significantly advanced the project over the last few months since we last talked. As a background for everybody, my name's Anastasios Arima, Tasso for short. As Campbell mentioned, I'm the director and the founder of Piedmont Lithium. I moved to the States about 6 years ago to run that. Prior to that, I was heavily involved in the metals and mining, or was involved in the metals and mining industry with other operations and part of the Apollo group, working with Ian Middlemas. And just as a recap, we looked, leading on from Piedmont Lithium, a few years ago, we started looking at other critical mineral supply chains where we wanted to essentially reshore the supply chain here in America, and we focused on titanium and the critical minerals contained typically in these titanium mineral sands deposits as potential sources for reshoring these critical minerals in America. And we focused in on this area here in West Tennessee, where I'm located right now, and which was a significant untapped deposit, is what I'll show you today. And really the focus is developing sustainable critical minerals in America for advanced industries. And I've got a picture there of one of the most advanced industries, which America is leading the way in, is obviously space exploration, which requires a lot of these critical minerals in the future that we're developing. So some disclaimers, forward-looking statements that we'll be making out here. This presentation will be released to market today. So Hyperion Metals, our mission is, again, zero carbon, sustainable critical mineral supply chains, development of those here in America, leading and supplying these leading and high growth industries, whether it be space exploration through to 3D printing and additive manufacturing. We're going to be doing that via the development of our Titan critical mineral project located on the McNairy Sand out here in West Tennessee, to reshore titanium, rare earth and ceramic mineral feedstocks, which are critical to US developments. And then leveraging that development together with technology that we've secured, the hammer titanium metal technology, we also want to reshore titanium metal production, but reshore it in a zero carbon, low cost manner right here in America, and make America a world leader in titanium metal manufacturing as well over the longer term. So where we're located is just west of Nashville. I drove in yesterday. It took me only an hour and a half to get in, between Nashville and Memphis in the state of Tennessee. This area here has outstanding infrastructure. Literally, I could walk to my project right now with a 15-minute walk. And I'm surrounded by a population of 3,500, and within 90 minutes of this area, there's over 3 million people. And a very skilled labour force surrounding us. In addition, we have everything you need to build a project here, whether it be power, gas infrastructure, freight rail, highways, the ports, and of course, being located right here in the middle of America, we've also got the customers as well for all the minerals and metals that we intend to produce here. This is important because this keeps CapEx and OpEx low. And we just announced yesterday that we started our scoping study. It will follow on from the resource that we intend to release to market in the next few months. So hopefully in third quarter, we come out with our scoping study, and we hope that the advantages, or we know and we feel confident that the advantages of this excellent infrastructure out here and labor force out here that we have is gonna come through in the numbers and the economics that we show in that scoping study. So we've already, in this area, we've already put together a very large land position. We focus here on the community a lot. That's why we've opened this office. And my team has done an outstanding job in putting together strong community relations out here, and building and renovating this office right here. And it helps because we are part of the community, and that community focus helps us to secure more of the land out here as well. We've already put together thousands of acres and already believe that we have something which is a project out here. But as we get more land, we intend to drill more, and we expect to define more deposits like what we're seeing out here. And this leads me to here, where we're actually rapidly establishing that this is a major critical mineral province here in America. So all this land that we're picking up, the more land we pick up, the more we want to drill, the more we're defining these thick, potential large-scale deposits out here which contain high-value minerals which are critical to the US. Already in the last 6 months, we've already drilled, I think it's 130 holes. We've completed over 3,000 different samples analyses with SGS Labs in Canada. And we've already completed our preliminary bulk sample test work programs, 1.5 tons through Mineral Technologies pilot plant in Stark, Florida. And we've got the analytical test work coming back from that over the next month. What we really do believe, and the more we get into this project, the more we feel confident that this is an untapped critical mineral province that over the longer term, we want to control. We have the first mover advantage over, and we think it can reshore a lot of these critical minerals, and with our hammer technology, titanium metal for the use of our advanced industries in America. Now, the way we want to do this, though, is we just don't want to build it any old way. We want to make sure that we incorporate leading ESG practices to benefit all stakeholders involved. So, of course, our shareholders, but also our community. And we want to make sure that we're focused on decarbonisation and making sure that we have the right governance and right sustainability from the get-go on this project. It's important because it's not just the right thing to do, but it's also important for our future potential partners or off-takers and also our future potential investors as well. This is the way the world is going. It's a good way. It's good for the development. It's progress for our global community, and we want to be a part of that, and we want to make sure that we are leading with that rather than being reactive to what's needed of us, so that when we are producing in 2, 3, 4, 5 years time, that we have got the most sustainable and the most decarbonized products going to market, especially on the titanium metal front, as I'll explain a little bit later. So what we're going to do is very simple here, is essentially, and what we've seen from our test work and our work already on the ground in this short space of time, is that we have a conventional mineral sands operation. So we will have a sustainable active reclamation mineral sands operation, which goes into a standard wet concentration plant and then standard mineral separation plant, producing really 4 key products right now that we think: rutile, high ilmenite, zircon, and monazite. We could stop there, and those minerals themselves are critical to US industries. The monazite, with the relationship with energy fuels, goes into the rare earth supply chain, reshoring it here in America. The zircon goes into the ceramic and foundry industry here. Rutile, leucoxene, and the high ilmenite goes into the paint and pigment industry here in America, which, as I'll show later on, is completely import dependent, and we're reshoring that capacity here. That in and of itself is an Iluka lookalike, only that it will be completely based in the United States and be focused on US customers. And that in and of itself, we believe, has immense value to just build out that supply chain. But as I'll talk about a little bit later, we developed a strong relationship with Professor Zach Fang out of the University of Utah, who was funded by the Department of Energy, and essentially had a breakthrough in processing of titanium minerals, or titanium metals, where he developed a technology which has the potential to have very low cost and zero carbon titanium metal powder production, titanium metal and metal powder production. And over the longer term, after we've built out our mineral product business, we intend to reshore also the capacity of titanium metal here in America as well, which is hugely important. If we do all this, we're reshoring these critical metals and these critical minerals, which have wide use and applications across many industries, and we're reshoring it sustainably and better than before as well, which is in line with everything that the current administration wants to do, and is just in line with the way things should be in our business as well. So we're really excited about it. So going into these markets a little bit more and our advantage here, I'll just take us through, and then I'll open it up for questions. So titanium and zircon minerals, as I explained in probably my previous presentation with you, Campbell, it goes into the paint and pigment sector and also into the ceramic sector, from everything from automotives to housing to high-value consumer products. Here in America, US housing starts are booming, and this is fantastic for our industry because titanium and zircon is heavily used in the housing industry. So it's leading to more need for paint and pigments, which puts more pressure on titanium metal feedstocks in our pigment industry here, and it leads to more tiles and bathrooms being built, which again puts more pressure on high-value ceramics and zircon being zircon demand here in the US. Behind that, we've got a strong global recovery and urbanization continuing in China and other countries, which again is placing even more global demand on titanium and zircon feedstocks as well. So not only are we growing here in America and the demand is rising here in America, it's also growing substantially globally on a backdrop of essentially declining supply in both of these commodities. So for us here in the US, it's important for us to reshore the capacity here so that we are not exposed to the imports or to the international market, which is demand is growing and supplies coming off, but also strategically building our own reserves here for our titanium feedstocks. Now, titanium as well and titanium minerals typically come with zircon minerals. So as mines here in the US have been shut over the last 10, 20, 30 years. We've also had a shut in of zircon production. So us reshoring the titanium mineral supply chain also strengthens the zircon supply chain here within America. And this is a huge market, which we are one of the only companies looking to do it here in America in an untapped, potentially massive province out here in West Tennessee. So this market is something that we can be a big part of in the future. And it's important, it's not just strategically important, it makes sense because we are literally, I could walk to the largest pigment producer in the world, to Kamua's New Johnsonville operation, which is just across the river, just out here. In addition to that, we're a short and low cost barge or rail distance to the other major pigment producers here in America as well. And this is a major logistical advantage. Right now, 94% of the imports, well, we are 94% import dependent, but most of those imports are coming from far-flung destinations like Western Australia, South Africa, and Ukraine. So not only does it make strategic sense, but it makes economic sense to reshore this capacity and provide low-cost feedstock supplies for our potential customers here in the paint and pigment sector as well. So that makes a lot of sense, and we're super excited about that and working with potential customers there. We've also got, as I explained in the previous slide, we've got monazite, which is a rare earth containing mineral. Rare earths are very important for our clean energy future. The rare earths go into the high strength magnets for the motors on a Tesla or for the generators on wind turbines. This is a booming industry, as probably everybody is aware. Electric vehicle sales are taking off. Having been involved with Piedmont for the last 6 years, I've seen this happen, and we are at an inflection point. I've ordered my first Tesla, and it should be arriving in the 4th quarter this year. It is a thematic which has taken off, and we are eventually all going to be driving, in my opinion, electric vehicles in the future. In addition to that, renewable energy capacities is taking off as well. So the need for rare earths is immense. Yet here in the US and pretty much globally, we again are completely reliant on imports and reliant mainly for rare earths on Chinese imports as well. So we need to find alternatives to that. So us having the mineral resource, having significant feedstock, we established a relationship with Energy Fuels where we have an MOU to supply them with monazite and potentially participate in the downstream of that. Energy Fuels is an outstanding company listed on the NYSE. They have the White Mesa Mill, which is one of the only facilities outside of China which can take the monazite mineral and produce rare earths. So we're collaborating with them to supply the monazite and to potentially be a big part of this mine to market supply chain over the longer term. And we really truly believe that we can reshore a lot of that capacity from the feedstock that we have and the processing capacity that Energy Fuels has. We can substantially reshore the capacity for rare earths here in America between our companies. Really exciting, high value market, extremely important for our energy sector and our clean energy revolution here in America. So really excited to be a part of that. And then lastly, this probably excites me the most, is titanium metal. Again, I want to sort of reinforce the point. Just being a mineral producer, we have immense value. It's like having an Iluka of North America. But being able to go further downstream and reshore better a zero carbon titanium metal supply chain with this new technology, we are really excited about. Titanium metal has not been talked about a lot. It's of national security importance, and it's 100% import dependent here in the US. We, unlike say electric vehicles or lithium or rare earths, in the titanium sector, the US is the #1 consumer for the high value sectors for aerospace and defense. Yeah, we have got an immense industry which uses Boeing, and our defense sector uses an immense amount and an increasing amount of titanium products. It's a lightweight, corrosion resistant, strong material. Yet we have become here in the US completely reliant on titanium sponge, which is the first iteration of the mineral to the metal. Luckily, we still have most of our imports come from a couple of plants in Japan. So 90% of that comes from Japan. But the number 1 and the number 3 producer, number 2 producer is Japan. The number 1 and number 3 producer is China and Russia. If anything was to ever happen to those Japanese plants, if they went the way of the American plants and shut in, the US would be completely reliant on Chinese and Russian capacity to supply a national security industry, an industry which is heavily involved in national security. In addition to that, the way that titanium metal has been processed over the last 70 years is via the Kroll process. Titanium dioxide, the mineral, titanium dioxide, is very hard to process. That's also what makes it corrosion resistant, because titanium metal forms a skin of essentially titanium dioxide on top of it. So the previous method, the Kroll method, has used a lot of chlorine, a lot of energy, a lot of carbon to create titanium sponge. And then from there, a significant amount of energy and a lot of titanium waste to then make titanium parts. So for us, when we started this project, we wouldn't have gotten into or been looking at the downstream titanium metal production if it wasn't for Dr. Fang and his team. Dr. Fang had a scientific breakthrough about 10 years ago where he saw that essentially hydrogen assisted in the reduction of titanium dioxide to titanium metal. And this is a true scientific breakthrough, and there's a lot of papers that you can read on it. Dr. Fang is a preeminent, one of the world's best metallurgist, professor of metallurgy at the University of Utah. And he essentially took this scientific breakthrough, and over a 10-year period, he was funded by ARPA out of the Department of Energy to the tune of around $8 million to take this from a lab scale concept to a pilot scale concept. And he had Boeing and Iconic as industry partners. And what he showed was that he could produce titanium metal from the mineral feedstock via a zero carbon process with significantly lower energy consumption at far reduced cost, and also produce a powder, and then with a little bit more processing in his technology to a spherical powder that can be used in additive manufacturing. This is a patented, this is a set of multiple patents, which is a complete potential breakthrough for the titanium industry. So what we did is we have got the exclusive right to use this technology, and we plan on developing over the longer term an integrated ore to metal supply chain using the hammer process. Again, this is sort of icing on the cake. We've got this outstanding, potentially massive mineral business here where we can reshore titanium, zircon, rare earth mineral production here in America. This is icing on the cake. If we can scale and build out an integrated zero carbon titanium metal production here in America, this is a huge, potentially disruptive technology. Not only is it disruptive for the titanium industry, the US titanium industry, by developing an internal or an integrated US titanium metal production here in the United States, it could also be disruptive to other industries. If we can bring the cost of titanium metal down to the cost of, say, stainless steel or aluminum, or bring the cost of titanium metal powders down to the same cost of stainless steel or aluminum powders, and with additive manufacturing make titanium parts which are as cheap or cheaper than stainless steel or aluminum parts, we can really disrupt a lot of different sectors. And again, this is over the longer term. This is after we've built out a large mineral business here that's hopefully very economic and highly valuable. We can then look at scaling up this business. If we are able to do this and we have a low cost titanium metal parts going into industry that's zero carbon and much more sustainable than, say, what stainless steel or aluminum are, which are heavily carbon intensive and in some regards unsustainable, we can have a profound impact, not just on the existing titanium metal sectors, but other sectors as well. So super exciting, icing on the cake for the development of our project. So for us, we've got the strong team. We've already built a really strong team out here. We continue to add to that team. We've got advisory board ranging from capital markets through to technology. We've done this before in other companies as well. This is a big challenge for us, but the potential value creation here is huge. And I'm really proud of my team, and I think we can, I am confident we can do it again. And we will be adding more to the team as we continue to progress the development of this project. For us, we have got big aspirations over the next 5-10 years, but it's all in baby steps. I list out here what's immediately in front of us in the next quarter through to the third quarter, so really the next 4 months. We've got our phase 3 drilling program results. We've got the results of our metallurgical test work program as well to come out, which will guide then the JORC compliant resource and then the scoping study. So that all happens in the next 4 months. We believe that that is a significant amount of value add there as well. And then on top of that, layering on top of that is the further partnership discussions, both on the mineral side for our titanium minerals, our zircon minerals, but then also potential partnerships on the downstream side with the titanium metal technology, which we've had a lot of already inbound inquiries around that because it's such a potential disruptive technology as well. So we hope to make significant announcements on the project and then potentially on partners as well, really in the coming few months. So for us, as we move through this, there's a lot of value add to have. We see our ASX listed peers as being the other critical mineral focused peers, especially in the States, that you can see here. But then over time, we have aspirations to come to the US and be listed in the US. It makes sense being a US company. And as you can see some of the valuations there for the critical mineral supply chain focused groups in America. And then over the longer term, we believe that there is an angle here that we should be classed, especially with as we scale and prove out the hammer technology and what the Dr. Fang has done there, some of our potential peers should move more from the critical mineral supply chain guys to more the 3D printing or downstream guys as well. And you can see some of the valuations that the higher tech companies get as well here in the US. So essentially what we're doing, we believe that the market favors right now, and the market is these sort of big, bold plans are being rewarded by the market. And if we can execute on our strategy, not just over the next 4 months and hit our milestones, but over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we think we can add substantial amount of value to our development and our plans down here. So that's about it. Look, we are big owners of the stock ourselves. Our chairman, Todd Hannigan, has bought and continues to buy stock. I've got a big position here, both in stock and in the performance shares as well. We are tied to the success of this development, and we're not looking at this in the short term. We are looking at this over the next 2, 3, 4, 5. For me, even, I'm looking at where this company is going to be in 2030, because that could be, especially with the downstream focus that we have, that could be disruptive and could make profound changes to the way the world uses metals. So really exciting stuff. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've got a lot of milestones, a lot of value add milestones ahead of us. As we've hit our milestones, we've added value. I can't say that it's going to continue, but I can say that we are going to try as hard as we can to hit all our milestones, and whether the market continues to rate that or not, I'm not too sure, but thus far it has. It's every time we've hit our milestones, the market has liked it. So we hope that over the next 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, as we achieve and hit our milestones and hopefully achieve our vision, that we're going to add a significant amount of value for our shareholders and enrich our shareholders and the community at large as well, and create a better world. So that's about it from me. I'll open it up for questions.
Excellent. All right. Back to that technology, quite interesting. Can that be used for other types of, titanium sands besides rutile? And is it effective on iron oxides?
Iron oxides, we have we are looking at testing it on high tie ilmenite, which is 70% TiO2 and the rest mainly iron. We believe that it should be effective on that. The hammer process as well, this hydrogen destabilizing those bonds can be used in some of the other reactive metals as well. We believe another process that uses the Kroll process is the manufacture of zirconium from Zircon. There is potential to use it there as well. Right, that could potentially be future R&D work that we do over the long term with Professor Fang. But we haven't initiated anything like that right now. We've only been looking at our rutile through to titanium metal and metal powders, and looking at our high tie ilmenite as well. And look, we're going to have a lot of test work is ongoing right now. We're doing a lot with black sand right now at the University of Utah, and I'm there a lot. We expect in the third quarter to have quite a few updates on that front. And the fourth quarter, we expect to be making a bit of metal.
And could it be used for other metals? And is your license for use on everything, or just really specific to what this is?
Right now, the exclusive licenses around metals is around titanium metal and metal feedstocks, but we have a very strong relationship with black sand and have talked about other uses as well.
Okay.
My relationship with I would call Professor Fang a friend. He's been and I've learned a lot from him already over the last year. We've got a very strong relationship, and we love to work with him on future aspects as well. And we have discussed that. We just haven't put that, haven't done anything to affect that and put it in writing and progress research. We're moving at a million miles an hour here, and we have got that on the agenda. There's just some other things that we're first checking, and some other things first.
And are you actively soliciting, looking, meeting potential partners, offtakes, and
for
titanium,
for everything? So titanium,
like you did for Piedmont, is that the
yes, absolutely. I mean, we've got an excellent team and an excellent advisory board. We've had connectivity with a lot of potential downstream partners, and it's hard to tell now when some of those partnerships could eventuate, but I'm very confident that over the next, at least, maybe even over the next 6 months, that we could have very strong partnerships, ideally similar to what we had with energy fuels, but in some of the downstream industries. There's a lot. So the titanium minerals and the zircon, I think it's going to be more straightforward, but still work to develop those relationships with those end-use customers. But then on the titanium metal side, because we're not just talking about disrupting the existing titanium metal supply chain, but also potentially being able to bring titanium metal and metal parts to other sectors which previously did not use titanium because of the cost, and now there's a potential for a zero carbon and low cost titanium part, for instance. We're starting to open up a lot of doors there, and my advisory board is very well connected here in America and in Europe, and so we're starting to open up some really interesting doors, which hopefully eventuates into partnerships similar to energy fuels, or maybe very similar to what we're doing with energy fuels, where we're participating on the downstream.
And one more question for me. One always wants to know about some kind of U.S. listing, something, anything. Do you have any timeline there? Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to say a timeline because there's a lot of work to do to become a US listed company. We have got the experience. That's one great thing. Having worked with Keith for the last 5 years and his investment banking experience and what he did there.
At Piedmont, yes.
At Piedmont, yes. I think we're taking a lot of those lessons learned, and we're going to be able to apply it here. So, having gone through that and gone through it with Keith, I think I learned a lot there, and my team learned a lot as well, and going to apply that here. Like being able to give a timeline right now is a bit hard.
Okay.
But it is definitely on the agenda, and it makes a lot of sense because we've got a big support base here as well.
And it's going to get bigger. Stu, want to take over?
Yeah, thanks for presentation, Tasso. So the project, do you expect it to kind of be manageable on a standalone basis for a company, or do you think you might need is it of such scale you're minding to bring in, partners at the project level?
So it's a great question, and this is where I start with on this one, especially the infrastructure slide. So the infrastructure allows us to start small. So we don't have to go. There's other companies in the mineral sand sector which have to go big because there's a lot of infrastructure to build up front. Good projects, but just more remote than what we are in. Whereas here we don't have to go big from the start. We can leverage that infrastructure to phase in the development of this project and then use cash flows to phase up the development of the company and grow. So we believe that from a financial perspective, it's something that we can handle. We've raised, I think it's been obviously 300 million now in Piedmont to develop that to where it is now, and it's in an excellent position. We think that these mineral sands operations have got a lower capex profile just from the mineral sands. The titanium metal powders, though, it's a different thing, and we need to do more work there. But just looking at the minerals business and producing mineral sands, critical mineral sands operation here, we think that that's something that we can handle both operationally and financially with my team here.
Yeah, gotcha, thanks. And then the scope of the scoping study that's going to commence with Hatch, they'll be looking at all those scenarios.
Yeah, they'll be looking at different scenarios. Hatch has got an outstanding team led by John Elders, who actually had worked on this project back in the 90s, I think. Outstanding team, strong history in the titanium and mineral sands industry. So they're going to cover off capital and operating cost scenarios here for us right here in Tennessee, and they've got a strong practice here in North America as well. We've dealt with them in the past, they were a big part of the development of the Piedmont as well.
Gotcha. If you could just run through kind of high level permitting process to get mines permitted in Tennessee, and what you're starting already. So
I would say it's very similar. We're going to make some announcements on that as part of the scoping study, but it's similar to what we went through with Piedmont. Over the longer term, you'll need a 404, 401 permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, and then you work with the state out here to get the right state permits for your mine development and out here. Tennessee is a very pro-development state. We just had we're having community and state meetings right now in between this call. Very pro-development. It's all about making sure that you're sustainable and a strong partner in the community as well. It's going to come down a lot to making sure that the community is supportive of this project, and that that means we're a part of the community. We really do feel that we are a part of the community and that we have to be a good steward of the lands out here and be a good community member as well. So that's why we've built an office down here and really driven that forward. It's unlike projects that you would see on the West Coast where you're dealing with the BLM and you're dealing with a federal agency. Here we're dealing with private lands, some of which we will own or have options to own, and some of which we'll lease. But in the end, it's going to come, a lot of that permitting process is going to come down to making sure that the community is supportive of the project and understands what it means long term for jobs and growth in this area.
Got it. Thanks for that. Pass it on to Adam.
Great, thank you, Stu. Just to follow up on Stu's prior question regarding any potential off-takers or participants, in the actual construction and your business, what are the steps that are needed in order to get them comfortable with the product that you're going to produce?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it sort of comes off the back of the metallurgical test work that we're completing right now. So we did the pilot test work and produced mineral products, and now those products are out to SGS labs to get analysed and the results to come back, and then we get a report back from Minerals Technologies talking about recoveries and all that. That goes into the scoping study. Then we go in and we do a larger bulk sample later this year that goes into the development of the pre-feasibility study as well, post the scoping study. But from this initial 1.5 tons, we've made enough product that we can actually start going out to potential customers on the mineral product side both the titanium minerals and zircon minerals to elicit support, I guess. We've got kilograms of material that we can send to them where they can analyze and see, you know, what it is, and then from there we can continue those discussions, and hopefully, you know, hopefully over the shorter term, but you can never sort of guarantee, hopefully over the shorter term we can form MOUs for offtake or something like that, and before we go into construction, of course, convert those MOUs to offtakes. Now, on the titanium metal powder side, we've engaged already with a few groups. Black Sand had previous titanium metal powder they made, both hammer and spherical powder, that, you know, we've sent around to quite a few different groups that have been interested. And we intend to do that again, continue to do that, and we're seeing quite a lot of interest.
And specifically in regards to the TiO2 feedstock and the zircon, you showed a slide with a number of TiO2 pigment plants, you know, within a relatively short distance of your facility. Currently, they're all taking from offshore?
Yes, so right now, if you look at Chemours has, we showed 94% of titanium mineral feedstocks are imported. The other 6% is Chemours operating in northern Florida and northern Florida, southern Georgia. They've got 2 dry mills fed by 4 mines. So they supply a little bit of their own feedstock, but there definitely is a significant amount coming from imports. Tronox, Ineos, Louisiana Paints and Pigments as well is all imports.
And will you be looking for one of these larger companies to help fund you or invest directly in the construction expense?
You know, again, I'll go back to, we've got to finish the scoping study, but because of the immense amount of infrastructure around us, when these mills, these wet and dry separation plants are not that capital intensive as what, say, some other plants are in other mining areas. So for us, the development of this project is less about how big we can go, but rather how small we can go and then phase up to make sure that we've got enough size, but we don't have a significant amount of capital. So do we need third parties like that? I don't think, personally, knowing what I know of this project already, is that we don't need it. Now, could there be discussions around partnerships like that, whether it be equity injections or joint ventures or something? Yes, but right now, the business we're planning and the business plan is to develop this independently. And we think that it's not going to be a significant amount of capital where we couldn't fund it from the markets or from debt. You know, getting offtake is extremely important, though, for us to develop this project, and that's going to be important. Whether those partners want to invest or not, we're just going to have to analyze that when and if it comes up. But we don't. It's not like it's not. You know, this is not going to be a $500 million development where we need to, or $1 billion development where we need, you know, a big partner to fund a significant amount of capital for us. I think it's going to be a fairly straightforward financing and offtake, you know, relationship.
And then on the same theme, just talking about the permits, can you give us a feel for the timeline, at least the timeline that's sort of under the company's control?
So really, it's all about you know, how big you're going to go in the initial operation, and we've still got thoughts around how we scale this project. It can be very quick if you stay relatively small and start with an initial sort of starter mine, or we could go to a sort of mid-sized mine from the start and then scale up. I would hope that in the next 2 years that we're able to be in operation. Now we still need to work through exactly, you know, what that plan would be, and that's what the scoping study helps us to do. So tough to give you a timeline right now, but in the next 3 months we're going to be able to have a lot more color. Definitely, in my opinion, though, by 2025 we should be operational and reshored a lot of these supply chains, these mineral supply chains, and by 2030 we should be a major supplier of, you know, of minerals, but also potentially metal if we can scale the hammer technology over the longer term. But exactly, you know, when we get there and the timing of that and the phases, we need to go through the scoping study, and then we'll be able to talk more about that.
And then just one last thing, talking about the hammer technology that produces a spherical powder, can you give us a feel for, you know, if the applications are identical to conventional titanium metal, or if there's a difference in the you know, in the structural competence, but for example, when you're making something from a powder versus the pure sponge into metal?
Okay, yeah, it's a really, really good question. So the first part of the hammer process makes hammer powder, an angular powder. You can control the size distribution of that powder, and that essentially can be a replacement for sponge into the melt capacity, which is still significant melt capacity out here in America. I think there's like 70 or 80,000 tons of melt capacity here in America. We could just replace sponge using hammer titanium metal powder and reshore capacity for American supply chain, for the American titanium metal supply chain right now. Like, not right now, but if we just scaled hammer. And what hammer's shown is the hammer titanium metal powder is at or better than imported sponge. So that alone we could just use that, and there's no change to the supply chain downstream. What we're focused on though, and want to be more focused on, is spherical powders, going a little bit more downstream, because as we see the market evolve, there's an excellent presentation by Amvest, which is run by a lady called Kathy Woods. She does an excellent presentation on her website. Fantastic fund manager, which invested in Tesla early. One of her big thematics is 3D printing, additive manufacturing. And we think additive manufacturing brings the cost of parts down, and then by injecting in a low-cost titanium metal powder, which potentially could be as low cost as stainless steel or aluminum powders, all of a sudden you could potentially make parts that historically were aluminum or stainless steel and make them out of titanium. And that's where the big disruption is in this technology. And this could be in existing parts, which can be additively manufactured at lower cost right now, or in future parts for some of our future industries as well, like electric vehicles and looking at things like that. It is definitely a longer term objective for us though, because there's a lot of work to go in. The easy, if we could scale hammer quickly, the easiest pathway to commercialization or to product is to go into the existing titanium metal supply chain. But I think over the longer term, that 3D printing, additive manufacturing taking off, you're seeing it here a lot more. You're seeing a lot of the high-end downstream users use it, and I think longer term we want to be, if we can scale hammer and scale the spherical powder production, we want to be with those additive manufacturing companies and supplying into that supply chain, because that's a very high value supply chain as well.
So
but
just
no difference in it. What we see is at or better quality than current metal.
So if I had a golf club that was printed from powder versus conventional, the characteristics would be identical, or be nearly identical.
Could it be better? Like, could it even be better? You know, because we could potentially print it out of you know, Ti-64 or something like that, and you know, better, you know, a better alloy as well, because it will be cheaper, right? So yeah, it should be identical or better. Low oxygen content, all that sort of stuff.
Great, thank you.
I could get Professor Fang on the line to give you a really good explanation of how the microstructures could look like and all that sort of stuff. But you know, it's really interesting. But yes, we could make parts and clubs and stuff like that, which are far superior for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. We're gonna wrap up soon. Any well-known investors, institutional investors, strategic investors in the company?
No, it's still, I wouldn't say that I've seen any come on the register, but we've had a lot of buying from a few larger nominee accounts, so I can't see behind that right now. So I'm not too sure. We've had a lot of buying from our own chairman, Todd Hannigan. We've had strong buying out of Europe as well and out of the US, but have not seen anybody yet tip across 5%. But it could happen in the future. I think something like this, as we get the story out there and as we do things like this, Campbell, we hope to bring more and more on board. And I'm sure over time, and I'm sure as we get closer to coming to the US and eventually hopefully listing on the US, that I believe that we should have significant institutional or strategic interest.
Okay, how much does Apollo Group have?
So between Apollo Group people, it would be 35 or 40% right now. 35% in close, but a lot of the close supporters, there's a significant amount. So we've seen the register tighten a lot over the last 6 months, significantly.
Mm-hmm. Want to thank you.
A lot of cash.
Yep.
A lot of growth, a lot of milestones ahead of us. If we can hit them and we can continue to add value to the story, we feel really confident about it. So I'm really happy where we are. I'm especially happy about what my team's done to date already, and I hope to continue to hit these goals and hit these milestones and add value and have more of these sort of discussions.
That was a closing statement. Couldn't think of any better one, but I will have the last word. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and please share your feedback on the way out. Replay will be available at amvestcapital.com/webinars. And with that, I'll wish everyone a great rest of their day, or in Australia, beginning of their great day. So with that, we'll speak later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tasso. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.